What separates the arguments you win in your mind from the ones you lose in real life? I've never lost an imaginary debate in the shower, but the perfect comeback always seems to come hours after the fight's already over when I'm talking to other people. By the end of this video, you'll learn to harness your persuasive shower power and win arguments in the real world as easily as you do in your head. And it's actually simpler than you think. In fact, there are only 3 things stopping you. Let's check out the first. Pay attention to this conversation. Which side are you?
So we agree that this is a peer-reviewed meta-analysis of hundreds of studies that says that your source is wrong. So all of these literal experts agree that your logic is faulty.
Looks that way to me.
So you agree with me then?
Nah, there's just no way that's right. Plus, my cousin is a so-called expert, and I watched him eat a worm when we were kids, so...
Have you ever tried arguing with someone and it feels like you're talking to a human-looking robot piloted by a failed science project? They're an idiot. You've debunked every single source they brought up. You've blown open the holes in their faulty logic. You have proven your point with indisputable facts, and still, somehow, they don't agree with you. Perhaps the most important communication skill you should start utilizing today is know your audience. People have a proclivity to believe that others think the way they do, so something that would convince me should convince you. That's not how it works. Everyone assesses situations using their own thought patterns, and you need to work with, not against, their deeply ingrained belief systems to make your point. Let me give you an example. I tend to view things from a pretty pragmatic, analytical angle. The easiest way for me to understand something might be to literally draw it out on paper and show visually how one step logically follows the next. And for a long time, I struggled to communicate effectively with emotional thinkers. For the life of me, I could not understand why my flawless, logical arguments were not convincing them to dump their 401ks into Mimir coin. Kidding, kidding, kidding. But the truth is, the way something convinces you won't necessarily convince other people. You have to speak their language. Hey boys and girls, welcome back to Mimir's Caveat Corner. I want to point out that one thinking style is not necessarily better than another, unless it's different from mine, in which case, it is worse. Being a primarily emotional thinker does not mean you ignore the logic of a situation. You just view it from a different perspective with different values. And it's easy to conflate the term logic with objective truth, but that's not accurate. Now, if you can identify the way the other person thinks, you're already halfway there to getting what you want out of an argument. As more of a pragmatic thinker, here's how you might approach someone you've identified as an emotional thinker. The first thing you need to do is validate their point of view. Demonstrate that you understand their emotional concerns and address them in terms of interests. Explain that you share their interests, and you will address them just as passionately, but with different methods. We'll talk about interest more in a minute, but does that make sense? And trust me, no matter how convincing you think the logic behind your argument is, if you don't view the picture holistically and ignore the emotional component of the argument, you will lose 100% of the time. And the reverse is true if you're an emotional thinker trying to convince a pragmatic thinker. That's my experience, but as you're reflecting on your personal thought patterns and what thinking types you struggle to win arguments against, let us know in the comments if you have any other specific strategies.
I just don't think we have to go to their party.
How could you say that?
I'm not sure exactly how it works. Something with the vocal cords reverberating?
No, you insufferable idiot. I mean, how dare you say that after all they've done for you?
Whoa, I just helped them move last month. Plus, they're not even gonna notice if we don't show up.
Oh my god, you drive me nuts. Why do you always have to be this way? It's like you just don't even...
Be what way?
You know what I'm talking about.
I know, easier said than done, but keeping your emotions in check during an argument, totally overpowered strategy. Think about why your shower arguments are so successful. For one, it's a no-pressure situation. Or would that be a bath? Your biggest concern is whether you've kept the conditioner in for long enough and you're able to think with the calm level-headedness of a monk on beta blockers. But in real life, you get flustered, your heart rate increases, and it becomes harder to think and communicate clearly. There are more ways to let your emotions get the better of you than there are fanfics from an AI chatbot, but most people do one of 2 things: lash out or clam up. For example, if someone is making you frustrated in an argument, you might resort to ad hominem attacks instead of focusing on the discussion. You're an idiot. You can't be right about this because you're always wrong about everything. And attacking the other person's character instead of their argument usually isn't a great strategy unless you're at recess. Alternatively, you might not know what to say or how to express your point. You might be blinded by emotions. Well, I just... Ugh! Either way, your ability to communicate breaks down. And we're here to learn how to get what you want out of arguments. How's it look, Doc? Well, your symptoms appear to be raising your voice and going on tangents. You forget the initial point and your side arguments. Well, I'm afraid they suck. Is it bad? Oh yeah, they tear you to shreds when you get emotional. Is there anything I can do? Well, the cause seems to be when people insult your intelligence. Manage those triggers and your symptoms Manage those triggers and your symptoms should improve. So you're saying the prognosis is good? No, Steve. You're gonna die. When do you lose the ability to be persuasive? Knowing ahead of time what points of conflict set you off is necessary to prepare for and combat those symptoms. A lot of arguments aren't even won. They're just lost by one side. Do not lose an argument by talking to yourself. Okay, imagine the following. Two people are talking and you have no idea what they're even talking about, but one person is calm and collected, they're even smiling, and the other person is shouting, they're raising their voice, they're angry, they're flailing their hands around. If you had to make a snap judgment about who's winning the fight, who would you pick? People even use this as a strategy to win arguments with otherwise bad points. If they can piss you off and make you look like a fool, the subject matter is irrelevant. One trick I've found is actively making your voice more soothing. If you let yourself get swooped up in the moment and you talk like this, it becomes really hard to remember your points and express what did I want to say? Alternatively, if you force yourself to display composure, even err on the side of too much composure, your heart rate slows, and you give yourself more time to get back in the moment. Finally, when dealing with relationships where you may have a long, complicated history, really challenge the stories you're telling yourself about the other person and the situation. What do you actually know? Should your history affect the current conversation? Maybe, but going into it with preconceived notions may make it much harder to get what you want out of the argument. I was hesitant to share this because, honestly, I haven't seen anyone else use it, and I'm worried its efficacy will go down if this video catches on, but I just care about you guys so much that I'm gonna take that risk anyway. If all else fails, there is a surefire way to make anyone, regardless of their thinking pattern, agree with you in an argument. Like, comment, and subscribe. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it! The United States is the worst country in the world. Despite the fact that the United States spends more on healthcare per capita than any other country, its health outcomes are comically bad, and it's ridiculous that I have to spend a third of my paycheck for private insurance that doesn't even cover services half the time. Now take a second to see if you can identify the position and interest in that statement. Let's break this down. In this example, the United States is the worst country in the world is a position. It discloses a broad statement about where this person stands without actually divulging anything about his motivations. What about the United States spends more per capita on healthcare than any other country in the world? Position or interest? Trick question. It's neither. It's a fact. You could make some arguments about taxes and purchasing power and blah, 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 but nominally, this is a verifiable fact. The United States spends about twice the average of other wealthy countries on healthcare. The interest for this speaker is that he wants affordable, quality healthcare. That's the what of the argument. It's not what he says is the what, but it's clear from his communication that that's the crux of the issue. Okay, so which of these three should you focus on? Position, fact, or interest? If you're struggling with the answer, play out the situations in your head. How effective do you think you'll be at changing his mind to America is the best country in the world by telling him his position is wrong? How effective do you think you'll be by telling him that his data is incorrect and America functionally doesn't spend more than other countries on healthcare? To make any headway in this argument, you need to focus on his interest. In this case, that there are quality, affordable ways to obtain healthcare in America. Also, in this case, good luck. It can be tempting to go into an argument with the intention of destroying the other person's points, but that's seldom effective in the real world outside of persuading an audience. You have to work with the other person to make progress toward what you want. If you can't illustrate that you understand their perspective, it's over. You need to validate their interests. Even if you think it's the stupidest thing you've ever heard in your entire life, then cooperate, working toward your interests. Acting like you're on the same team is ridiculously effective. I don't care how divine an argument you make. If I feel attacked and I feel like you're gonna rub it in my face afterward that you were right and I was wrong, I am not changing my mind. I'm infinitely more likely to be open to change if I think it's a collaborative effort that satisfies both of our interests. Always, 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 always focus on interests rather than positions. Here are a few more examples to illustrate the difference. And really, don't get discouraged if it takes a while to get good at identifying interests. You'll have to read between the lines sometimes, and honestly, I could make an entire video about interests alone. If you made it to the end of this video, first of all, thank you. Second of all, I highly recommend you check out this one, where I show you how to give a compelling talk with little to no information. And consider subscribing so I know there's interest in seeing more of this kind of content.